Welcome to the Manufacturing Matters podcast with the Council of Industry. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, interviews, and insights from across the Hudson Valley that will revolutionize the way you think about manufacturing. This podcast is proudly sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, a leading accounting and advisory firm dedicated to helping businesses thrive in the manufacturing sector. With their industry knowledge and strategic guidance, PKF O'Connor Davies ensures that manufacturers have the financial insights and support they need to achieve success.
Mark Harris, Application Engineer and Educational Specialist with Allendale Machinery Systems. Welcome to the Council of Industry podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
So tell me, Allendale Machinery Systems, we're very familiar with them, a great member of our association. But for our listeners, can you talk a little bit about what Allendale does?
Yeah, Allendale is a machine distributor, Haas HFO, Haas Factory Outlet, but we do sell other brands of machines as well, 3D printing, and we also offer training for all the equipment that we do sell. We have a strong belief in education. We don't like just to sell you a machine or a printer or what it may be. We want to make sure they can use it. We work a lot with schools, and especially in our schools, we find that schools are having a harder time finding instructors with the experience. And, administration wants to have a machine, and I've seen several schools, they'll buy it, and then nobody knows how to use it.
Right.
So that becomes a problem. So we offer that type of training, where I'll go in, work with an instructor, and we want to make sure the programs are successful, so we don't want to leave them on their own.
Obviously, educational institutions, one of your customers, but for the most part, it's machine shops, metal shops. Is that primarily it, or?
Yeah, metal shop, whether it's medical, aerospace, automotive. We say metal shop, but they could be machining plastic as well.
Right. And geographically, what are we talking about? I know it includes you're headquartered in Allendale, New Jersey.
Right. So we're northern New Jersey, all of Long Island, and eastern New York.
Gotcha. And when we visit many of our members and get to walk around the facility, we see a lot of Haas equipment, and we know that Marty McGill has been there, or Mark Harris has been there to sell that machine. So how did you come to this? I know you've got a kind of an interesting background and experience. We first met when you were an instructor at Ulster County BOCES.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I bought my first Haas machines actually from Marty's father in 1997.
Okay.
That was my first introduction to Allendale Machine. And, as you said, I was an instructor. Started at Dutchess County BOCES, went to Ulster County BOCES, still an adjunct for SUNY Ulster, and working for Allendale Machine. But I got introduced because that's what we had. They are a strong supporter of the equipment. So there's not like anybody will sell you a machine, but they will support you with that machine as well.
Right, and that's critical. So, I mean, did you come in? Did you get an education background, or how did you get into BOCES? Yeah, talk about yourself.
Okay. Well, straight out of high school, I went into work to machine shops. Actually, was going to be a welder. I had gotten my DOT certification and went into a machine shop in Poughkeepsie. That's no longer there, but they said they had a position open for machining, and they would start me. They would train me and do same pay as the welder starting out, and that seemed interesting to me. So I started out working in machine shops, and then what happened was I was training a guy on the job, and Dutchess BOCES at the time was just starting their program, and he had told him about me training him, and they offered me a position, and it seemed like an interesting, different way to go. I had already been in machine shops probably 10 years, and it seemed like another opportunity, doing instructing. Never, dreamed I'd go back to teaching after I got out of high school, but here I am.
Now, where did you go? Did you go to Poughkeepsie High School, or is it on?
No, I went into actually Roundup Valley High School where we moved up here from this. Yeah, when we moved up here from the city, it was a little bit of a culture shock.
I bet. How old were you when you moved?
12.
That is just at that perfect time to hit
that perfect time. Yeah, to go from the
city
to very country.
Very country in the Roundel Valley for sure. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So when you made the transition to BOCES and to becoming an instructor, did they take you with your high school degree, or was there some education that you had to do?
Oh yeah, no, I had to go and complete, get in my teaching certification through Oswego.
Okay.
And so I did that while I was working. So I worked full time and also was doing school some semesters almost full time, enough credits to be full time, and had a family. So it was rough, but I really enjoyed teaching. So I wanted to stick with it and saw it through.
Well, our listeners should know that way back when you were, it's not that far ago, but when you were with Ulster BOCES, you were our first education champion for our manufacturing champion. Mark was the guy that we gave that to because you had inspired so many people. It was and is, again, a tremendous program at Ulster BOCES for machining and metalworking, I think is what the program was called at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the time it was. I had several different names.
Yes, for sure. So you're at BOCES and you kind of go back into the industry, right? After a few years at
Yeah. I
Ulster,
had
you
got
get
offered a
opportunity.
position to run a shop in Saugerties. So it's at the time for me, it seemed like maybe it was time for a change. So I took that opportunity. I did that for 6 years. And then, talk to Marty, all the time in between, because I always saw him and was talking about doing more in education. And my heart was really with education. I really enjoyed education.
Yeah,
Uh, Maybe not so much of the babysitting that sometimes I ended up doing.
right.
And this certainly seemed like a good opportunity for me to do something that I really enjoyed without, being in the classroom. I mean, I felt like I had some great successes when I was in the classroom, but 18 years in that classroom, it had seemed like it was time for a change. So when I left, and then now to go back, to Allendale and working with many schools,
Right.
it for me, I'm living the dream right now. I
I
love
was
what
gonna
I
say it feels like the best of both worlds for you that you can, you still keep your toe in the industry side of it and then you're there, but and you, as you said, very little babysitting. The folks that you're working with want to be there and want to
right.
learn and want to be engaged. That's terrific. I just want to add here that when you're running that shop in Saugerties, you really helped us get our apprentice program off the ground because you were the early adopter of the
Yeah.
apprentices and put a couple of CNC machinist apprentices in our program. And we are eternally grateful to you for that as well. It definitely helped us get the ball rolling. And the ball is rolling, we're happy to say.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So, what's going on with this? You touched on it a little bit earlier, and Allendale is great. They're selling the machines. I think from a business model, they recognize they can only sell machines to places where there are people to work the machines. So building the workforce makes a lot of sense, and they've invested generously and heavily, both Haas and Allendale, in workforce development programs and training programs. But you talk a little bit more about like what you're doing and how you're kind of filling that gap that where there aren't enough instructors. I think you did touch on it. Maybe you can just elaborate on what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah, so what we came up with, and because I've was in the classroom and I see a lot of schools now that have machines and maybe not instructors, more instructors seem to be art backgrounds, not manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've done at Allendale, what I've done is created lesson plans, like almost a whole program to help get an instructor going. The lesson plans, projects, programs, and I even go into the school, train the instructor. I can even do demos. I've done demos with the instructor and students if they want, or just do it with the instructor. I go in, talk to students about manufacturing. I They call me the traveling roadshow at Allendale. I roll in some machines, a robot, 3D printers, and just talk about, manufacturing as a whole, just to help build excitement. I've done recruiting for schools
Oh,
to help,
really? And
yeah,
recruiting for students or faculty or both?
for students, to help build a program. So I'll talk to a group of, say, like 10th graders, that may be going into a BOCES program and in 11th grade. So I'll go in and talk and just, what the industry has to offer, different areas. I go in and I'll bring in a knee replacement, a hip replacement. They have no idea that that stuff is
Right.
being manufactured.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the difference. That definitely piques people's interest for sure.
right. They want to
Yeah,
know what they're making.
yeah, and you have to have found that just the more kids get to touch and use and play with this equipment, for lack of a better word, work this equipment, that's you're more likely you are to get them hooked on how much fun and rewarding it can be.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, I certainly, when I was teaching, I had, pretty big classes, but I wasn't under the illusion that, all 20 of each session was going to be a manufacturing student and then go
Right.
into the workforce. But, if you could pique their interest, and, I had a lot of them come back to me as, when they were older and they were a detective. But he said, this helped me get through college, and it was always a background. And I think in the manufacturing, it teaches you a certain discipline, probably with any trade, but I'm going to say manufacturing because that's what I taught.
Right.
Just precise, precision, just basic life skill. I try to spend a lot of time with life skills,
Yeah. And well,
because
that's really important, and I get that with the BOCES programs as well. As you're talking there, you mentioned that the one person was a detective. Now, I can see that the methodical, logical process,
right,
like first this, then this, like putting the pieces together to solve a problem.
you got to understand
I could see the
processes.
parallel.
Yeah,
I could make the case that works perfectly.
sure.
So your visiting places, are instructors open to having you come in? I mean, you kind of mentioned, we certainly have seen it where a tech teacher, maybe there, or an art teacher, or whoever it might be, there's this is not their passion, but the powers that be, the
Right,
principal,
they
the
want it.
superintendent, the department, they want it, they got a grant, whatever it is, and they
Right.
foist it on somebody. Do you see a little bit of that, or do you see mostly people are receptive to it?
I would say most people are receptive to it, especially, because if they're in a classroom, I think they come to terms with, well, they're going to have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got, two choices. You want to make it a hard year or you want to make it an easy year. And being that I've been in the classroom, I understand what the teachers are going through. So I think they want to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
If you have the kids' interest, it's the best job in the world.
That's truer words are probably never spoken. I bet every teacher would say that.
That's right. Yeah, if they want to be there, it's a great job.
Which is,
So,
I mean, which is kind of the magic for manufacturing and machining, is that it is of interest to a different type of kid. I would think maybe all kids, but
yeah.
certainly the kid who's probably not as enamored with reading Macbeth or studying the Napoleonic Wars, maybe a little bit more interested in making a knee replacement or a fidget tool or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, when I was teaching, I also had those students that knew they wanted to be engineers. And my biggest thing to those students is, yeah, you can engineer. I can make anything look good on a computer, but you should know how to make what you're designing. Because on a computer, like I said, you can make it look good, but can you really make it? And can you make it cost effective? So,
Yeah, we hear
whether
that.
you want to go into manufacturing or go on further your education into engineering, you should have that background.
Right. So you're doing with some new schools. Talk a little bit about our friends at Pine Bush, which is probably the poster child for this Allendale school, partnership. You just give us a kind of an overview of the evolution there and what's going on at that program.
I mean, that program is a perfect, the instructors there were not manufacturing instructors. Like Kenny was an art teacher,
Yep, yep.
so, we've done the Haas training with him online. And a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was there helping him, setting up machines. We do training for the instructors to help build a program. And, he just did a big thing for eighth graders coming in for recruiting. So I was there helping setting up, he designed some parts and I helped set up the machines to, build interest. Because again, school is school, but these elective classes like manufacturing and that type of thing, if you don't have students, you don't have a class.
Right. And,
So,
that is That's a fascinating. I don't want to get off track. There's more to say there, but that is a fascinating aside. Is how much what the stakes are in that eighth grade meeting when you decide what you're going to take in high school. And
Right.
it usually comes without any thought or preparation. You show up at the guidance counselor, makes an appointment. You got like 20 minutes with your parents to lay out your schedule. They make some recommendations. You shrug and you say, okay.
Right.
I think if you're probably first in the birth order, you have no clue. By the time you have two siblings that have gone through it, probably parents have an idea what to expect and what they should ask for. But man, there's some high stakes there.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, let's, for the manufacturing side of it, if you don't know somebody in it,
I have
how do
no
you
idea
know?
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
no idea.
Right.
You have
I
no
think
idea.
yeah, I don't know if you find this to be the case. I mean, I think maybe that's a little bit better than it was 8, 10 years ago, just because Mike Rowe is out there talking about
Oh
this
yeah.
stuff. There's stuff on TV. There's Machines That Built America. There's a little bit more.
There's more, yeah.
There's more availability, but there's still a vast amount of ignorance as to what modern manufacturing is.
Definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, they see it. They see, I mean, STEM is a huge thing. But yeah, people really don't know what's manufacturing. I mean, I've done engineering days in White Plains, and the people come over like, wow, you have a hip replacement there. And I always tell them I'm kind of, like the poster child for medical manufacturing. I got two plates in my eyes. I got screws holding my knee. I'm a sports mess. But people, what can you put in the human body? Somebody has to design it, and then somebody has to manufacture it. And then these are parts that you don't want to take back out.
It's
It's a
true.
major surgery.
Quality is important here. Yes.
Quality is important,
Right.
aerospace, hey, this is going on a plane. You want it to
Right.
stay up there while it's up there.
Right. This is part of a jet engine. Well, yeah. Let's make sure that it's still running and runs consistently.
Right.
So back to Pine Bush, really quickly. Could you
Yeah.
just maybe talk a little bit about the equipment that you guys have there, as well as like the investment that Haas and the Haas Foundation and Allendale has made there?
Oh, yeah. Well, they have about six different CNC machines, from lathes up to a 5-axis milling machine. And the investment, I mean, Haas has donated so far, it's 250 was in one grant. I probably have on the wall well over $300,000, donated. And a lot of that money is for student scholarships. The Haas doesn't want you buying machines with the money that you're putting in for these grants. It's to help further the education. And then as far as Allendale, we help with setting up machines. We make sure the training is there, that everybody knows how, that needs to knows how to run service the equipment to make sure the program runs
Yeah,
smooth. Because if it's not
it's
running,
funny.
it's not helping anybody.
I don't think it's a coincidence, but every time I'm there, somebody from Haas is also there.
Right. Yeah,
But
we try to
so
support.
the 300 grand doesn't include the in-kind support that you're doing. Jim's always there. I've seen your son there.
Right.
It's nice of you to keep it all in the family. That's also great. So yeah, and I think that's like I said, a poster child. So I mean, not every school needs to be that.
No, of
A
course not.
lot of So what would be like an entry level thing for you and for Allendale and yourself to support with the school?
I mean, we have schools that maybe have one machine, and it could even be a desktop. We have a desktop milling machine, same controller as all our other machines. That would be, an entry level. I mean, I've been at school that just have 3D printers, like elementary school. I was at this summer, and I spent 2 days working with the instructor how to, 3D print and
Right.
make sure they understood if there's an issue with the bed or that's not level. How come your print is coming out like spaghetti? How do you fix that? So we support all of that. We want programs to be successful because that's building our future.
That is very true. You just reminded me too. I forgot all about this, but you guys, Haas Foundation is a huge sponsor of First Robotics.
Yeah, First Robotics, yeah. So we support a lot of teams. I've been going around the schools for the last few weeks with donation checks from Haas for all the robotics teams. They've given out, money to help support these teams. So they're the major sponsor for First Robotics again this year. And, robotics is big, as it becomes harder to find people, robotics is getting bigger.
Yeah, and I could just really quickly, first robotics is different levels of competition, but it is students design and build robots that have to perform certain tasks in competitions, and it's a co-opetition thing where
Yeah.
the teams both work together and compete, and it's a very exciting program. And we have in the Hudson Valley region dozens of teams at this point. It's very
Yeah.
exciting to see the program take off and the enthusiasm that the kids have.
Yeah, it's a great program. It is really, because teams from, teams will help other teams with their, everybody wants somebody to compete. They're there, of course, to win, but they also have no problem helping, we'll say, their competitor make sure they make it to the arena,
Right,
whether
right, right.
programming or building or whatever it may be, you know, that's really promoted with inside of First is to make sure you're helping other teams. And they even have
Right.
awards for it.
Oh, do they? For
Yeah,
that, like they're like
for helping.
most generous. Good. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good to know.
yeah,
I was not aware of that. Yeah, that's great. So Allendale, is been around. That's what, third generation company now.
yeah.
It's been around a while. Obviously, with this investment with you and in the future, looking towards the future workforce. What are you seeing in the industry? I mean, are you seeing any kind of a pullback in purchasing or an investment or different types of machines, more automation, less automation? Where do you see
No,
things
it's
trending?
definitely seeing more automation. As when we spoke with the training, it's harder to find people. Like earlier this year, I spoke to a company, was looking to hire 200 people this year, was like, oh, I'd love to buy more machines, but I need to find people to run the ones I have now before I could even expand. So that's a problem for companies now is they could expand. They probably have the work to expand, but they don't have the people to expand.
Mm.
So that's why we're really focusing on helping with the training and stuff, training people from within, kind of like your apprenticeship program. You're building people up, build what you have from within. They're not going to just come off the street. You got to build
Yes,
what you have.
that's what Johnny Ed always says. If I could 3D print people, I would. If I could clone them,
Yeah.
I would. But really can't find them. Talk a little bit about what automation means on a machine tool. And I mean, I know, I think probably a large segment of our listeners know, but there's probably
Yeah.
also a large segment that don't. So what does that mean?
Yeah. The automation, I mean, it could be the simple automation, tool changers where the less somebody has to handle a part. So we have basic automation. We have pallet changers, so you can load up a machine like the table on the machine, and maybe right next to that, it automatically load 10 different tables. So one guy could run 4 machines because while one part's running, they could be loading, the pallet pool, let's say, to keep that going. And then we do a lot with UR robots where we're using robots to load an arm, and
Hmm.
one person is making sure the robot has material and it's operating 4 machines. So it's in a cell. The robot arm just keeps loading, and you have one operator that's running all of that.
Right.
So the robot keeps loading. I mean, the robots now can do some basic deburring. You could use it for inspection. So that's where we're seeing a lot of our, especially in machine tending, we see a lot of automation.
And how does that work? Does the customer already know that? I mean, do they say, what we need is, I just want to buy this palletizer. I mean, because I know that's what I need. Or is it something that you kind of go in and watch them work and watch the operation and make some recommendations?
Yeah, we'll go in, see what they're doing, and actually, what's funny you mentioned, we get a lot of, just got an email that I have to look at some parts. So we'll evaluate the type of parts they're doing, and maybe pallet changer might be better. Maybe using a robot for this particular operation could save the customer this amount of time. So that's kind of the application part of my job is looking and analyzing jobs like that is okay, the salesman will go in and say, yeah, I think we could do that. And then the application engineers that work for Allendale is, okay, yeah, this is what you would need. Here's a program to do it. And this would be the best way to go about doing that particular part.
And I mean, is that, as far as the automation goes, is that something Allendale's been doing for a while, or is that something that you're kind of adjusted to? I mean, obviously machine tools was the core of the business, but is that just adapting?
It's adaptive. They've been doing it for a little while now. Now, obviously not as long as machine tools.
Right.
I couldn't give you an exact number of
Yeah.
years, but I know it's been some years because my son was working there before me, and that's what he was doing, was a lot of the automation, like with robotics.
Gotcha. And you mentioned, just to circle back a little bit, you mentioned earlier that you are still teaching a little bit. And is that at Ulster BOCES, or is that
SUNY Ulster?
SUNY Ulster? Okay.
Yeah.
And at what level is that? Is that kind of intro to machining, or is that?
I do a couple. I do intro to machining, programming class, a second like production 2, which is just a little bit higher level of machining. And I also do a CAD CAM course as well, to an intro to up to 5-axis.
Oh, okay. And I mean, what kind of students are you getting? Are they incumbent workers? Are they employed by somebody, or are they looking for a career change, or are they actual undergraduate students?
It's a mix. It's a true mix. I have some, straight engineering students, some from companies, local manufacturers looking to help. Part of the apprenticeship program is a lot of my students looking to build those skills. And then some are just looking for, changing a job, hey, I'm going to look at, go down a different route here.
And those courses are pretty well enrolled?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The ones that I teach I've run a class every semester. We haven't had to not run because there wasn't enough enrollment.
That is very encouraging.
Yeah.
It feels like all of our hard work starting to come to fruition, that people are actually taking those classes.
Yeah.
And to hear that some of the students are apprentices, that is also good to hear. So, Mark, I really appreciate your time today. It's always fascinating to talk to you and hear about what's going on in the industry and the sector. I think you have such a unique perspective, having a kind of a toe in both the machine shop world and the education world. You really bring a unique perspective to this workforce development world and the manufacturing world. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and we look forward to working with you ongoing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Manufacturing Matters, brought to you by the Council of Industry and sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, accountants and advisors who understand the unique challenges and opportunities in the manufacturing sector. We hope you gained valuable insights and inspiration from today's discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.